And welcome again to another of our series of Talk with NRC11. And today, now please give a big round of applause to our guest today, the author of the book I Am Muslim, Dina Zaman. Now, okay, the format goes like this. We'll keep it as casual as possible. So 30 minutes, she will talk about the topic today, which is leadership in a multi-faith society, which reflects Malaysia very well. And that will be followed by questions and answers. Now, a bit background on Cik Dina. As you know, Cik Dina means she's single, and so am I. But I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want my number. So, I'll set the ground rules here. During question and answer, you cannot ask her phone number. No. You can ask her later, but never mind. I know some of you bring a book, right? The I Am Muslim, and you would want her autograph. We can do it after the question and answer session. And your question, please keep concise, straightforward. I mean, there's no need for salutations and whatnot. We'll keep it as casual as possible. Now, without further ado, I know you're not here listening to me. You want to listen what Dina has to say. I present you Ms. Dina Zaman with the topic, Leadership in a Multi-Faith Society. Take it away.
Assalamualaikum. Very good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the NRC11, Zaidil, everyone for inviting me. I don't really give speeches, as a habit. So I'm a little bit nervous. Zaidil told me this last week, and I went, oh my God, what am I going to say? I'm just going to read out my speech because it took me 2 days to write the whole thing, and I stressed myself out. So you will just have to listen to me natter on. I don't know whether it'll be 30 minutes. I will die if it's 30 minutes. So I'm just basically going to talk about the things I discovered, my time as an editor with the Malaysian Insider, about what leadership means, and also some of my experiences working with some politicians, about leadership. Yeah, so, okay, as I said, I don't do speeches.
Please don't doze off. I know it's after office and you're tired, but please don't. You will be punished later on if you doze off.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to read out. Well, I'll do my best not to read out from my speech because that's really rude and not right. But, as I said, I don't do this.
Yes.
Okay, it's all right, yeah? Now, as a columnist and someone who, analyzes news for a living, this is what I noticed about, leadership and discussions about Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, everything in Malaysia, yeah? There is a lot of anger. And as an editor, when I get all this, from columnists, reading reader comments, it frightens me. I understand that you're angry. I understand that you're passionate about your faith, which is good. But it doesn't help when you have crazy readers lambasting the columnists and other people's faith. And I realize that anger, while it is good, it has to be managed. But nobody has actually managed that anger. Nobody has done anything. We know, as I said, as we all know, the official religion of the country is Islam. But we also know that the politics of faith in this country and in any multicultural country can add to a lot of tension, a lot of stress. Now, we have people like Dr. Asri, for example, who has done a lot to actually elevate a lot of tension and all that. But you see, when you talk about people like Dr. Asri, his work only speaks to a certain audience. It's not to the grassroots. I like Dr. Asri. I've met him. He's a wonderful man. I've read his books. I've also met a lot of other new, faith leaders, as we call it, Dr. Juanda Jaya and all that. They're wonderful. They're open. But again, they tend to meet a certain crowd. And the discussion is always about, this is what's happening in Malaysia, but nobody actually talks about leadership. Right. So I wrote a column, and this column was actually based on what one reader asked me. He actually asked me what my thoughts were about the religious management in the country and whether atheists had a role to play. Right. So I guess it's pretty obvious to a lot of thinking Malaysians, right, that there is a serious disconnect between the real lives of Malaysians and the perceived notions of our lives by self-appointed leaders of our faith and authority. Yeah, there are gaps also among ourselves within our own communities, and when combined, they only aggravate the situation. We must remember that when it comes to our religions, we are very emotional, and that's not wrong. We are passionate about our faith. Even atheists, the atheists I've met, are passionate about their need. So where is that sacred private space for all of us to believe and practice our faith? Now, that's one thing I would like to say before you start saying, look, we don't have this kind of dialogues or events. There are a lot of interfaith dialogues, events, initiatives in Malaysia. But still, a lot of them tend to be driven by religious groups. There is very, very little, I mean, at least to me as a journalist, yeah, very little and a very little honest interaction among Christians, Muslims and all. When I go to all these forums, I'll go there at the back, I'll listen. Everyone will be talking, okay, this is my piece, this is what I think. And if there is any debate within the members and the speakers, there's very little, because nobody wants to talk about this. It's very, very sensitive. Okay, sorry. Okay. Also, yeah, the few interfaith events I've been to, right, apart from it showing the great Muslim Malaysian divide and the non-Muslim Malaysian divide, they tend to be upper middle class. Regrettably, I mean, it's not about the grassroots at all. It's all about someone there, oh yeah, you know, let's go after Bangsa, da da da. I went to one event on September 16. There was a lot of talk about, you know, faith, culture, politics in Malaysia, but again, it only spoke to a certain me. And I personally, I'm not comfortable with that, because you're not addressing the real Malaysia. Now, there's a lot, okay, let's see, yeah? Now, I also suggested in my column, right? And I'd like to quote, you know, Douglas Johnston in his book, Faith-Based Diplomacy, Trapping Real Politics. Now, he said this, there is an assumption that with globalization and modernization, there will be a gradual, persistent, unbroken erosion of religious influence. Quite often, the reaction against Western modernization is framed in religious terms. This is a valid characterization when one considers the modern, secularized, and rather compartmentalized approach to life. And I noticed that a lot of people want that in Malaysia, yeah? The strict division between the sacred and the secular observed in the West is actually a relatively recent innovation and is foreign to much of the rest of the world, and this is particularly relevant to Malaysia. I'll quote another person. Ted Robert Gurr in Minorities at Risk said, empirical studies reveal that religious cleavages are at best a contributing factor in communal conflicts, and seldom the root cause. However, even in those cases when religion is not a core factor in a conflict, its prominence in some societies leads many to perceive that it is. Consequently, it is often necessary to address a conflict's religious aspects in order to move towards a just and peaceful settlement consistent with each side's religious imperatives.